Jason, thank you so much. It's
Pleasure.
wonderful to see you again.
Love to see you.
And how great to come to Manchester and find that the sun is shining.
Yeah, and you came here at university.
I did in the early 80s when, just as you were being born. I know.
So weird, isn't it? I know.
It is really weird.
So funny.
And I absolutely loved it because I come from the south and I loved the fact that Manchester was just full of energy and gritty and
crime.
Well, we didn't experience any crime.
Well, you did very well. You did very well. It was a tough place to be in the 80s and early 90s. Yeah.
Well, a few people targeted the students, but generally we had I lived in a place called Hume Crescent, which was described as the worst housing project in Europe.
The Triangle of Death, it was called by the chief of Greater Manchester Police. Yeah,
excellent.
That sort of area, yeah. So
yeah, well, we had Moss Side on one side.
Yes.
We had Hume on the other.
Yeah.
But the thing is that because it had been condemned, Manchester City Council decided they were going to knock it down, but couldn't afford to.
Right.
So
just left it.
So two groups of people moved in, students and drug dealers, and there was a very symbiotic relationship.
I mean, I'm going to say, yeah, they're sort of like those little birds that sit on an alligator. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They sort of look after
Exactly.
Yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? I know. I realised something just recently, which was the time between me being born and the beginning of the Second World War is a shorter time period than me being born and now.
Indeed.
You just have moments like that where you go, what?
Indeed. Well, I was born in 1962. The Second World War had only been over for 15 years.
Yeah, of course.
And in the early 80s, in London, there was no bomb sites. But in Manchester, there were still bomb sites everywhere.
Yeah.
And basically, they partially demolished whole terraces.
Yeah.
And left short, small little bricks. And, in my first house, the Yorkshire Ripper had attacked a prostitute on one of these sort of wastelands right next to our house. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a crazy time.
But anyway, we're now in 2025, and I'd love to show you.
In now the most expensive part of Manchester, in the northern quarter.
Great, though, isn't it? It's
great.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
A wonderful mix of sort of gritty industrialism with everything that modernity has to offer.
Absolutely.
It's a fine place.
I'm excited about this. I was honoured that you asked me to pop in and play.
Well, bless you. Before we start,
yes,
because you haven't actually seen this new version, so I'm really excited to show you.
I'm excited.
Tell me how you first got to play Broken Sword.
So I remember it being GCSE year, I reckon, or maybe we just finished GCSE, so it was 97. I remember I was obsessed with Football Manager, or Championship Manager as it was then, and that was the only game I really played. And my dad used to take the mickey that we had this, £800 Championship Manager machine, because that was all that he ever saw being played on it. And we'd always had, we were always a bit behind the time as kids growing up with games and stuff. We were, everyone had moved on to PlayStations, and I had an Amstrad CPC 464.
A beautiful, compared to the Spectrum, it was so brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it had the Spectrum, didn't last long. That blew up, I think.
Did it blow up by itself?
Yeah, just by itself.
Right, so it wasn't like you sabotaged it.
No, I didn't do anything. It just went one day. Just the little smoke just came out the top of the cartridge. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because the Amstrad was one of them where you would have to load a game and then go and have your dinner, and then come back and it was loaded.
Yeah, if you were lucky.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah. So so then we had, I don't know where that PC would have come from, maybe an old second-hand one. Anyway, my dad was getting a bit annoyed that we were only playing Football Manager. He was like, well, why don't you try and play something a bit different, something a bit, totally different from Football Manager, Championship Manager. And a cousin had said, have you played Broken Sword? It's a point-and-click game, which again, at the time, I was like, I don't know what that is. I'd only really played the footy sims. Here it came. It came, and I think that whole summer, because you get that long summer after your GCSEs, was just dedicated to trying to work out the Shadow of the Templars.
Did you get stuck on the goat?
Yes, forever. I can't even remember how I got through it. I think I got through it in just one day. I did it. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those things where I'd solved it. And even when we went back to play it, I don't think I wouldn't have been able to do it twice. It was just something happened there where the click, click, click got through it. I don't know. Did you load something into the game that said after so many attempts, we'll make
No,
this
we
easier?
should have done.
Should have,
The
really.
reason I put that
really should
particular, I know, the reason it was so difficult is that we kind of just cheated. We cheated the game because we changed the way that the interface worked halfway through.
Oh.
And the reason was because all of these people, the sort of the very vocal minority, would go, "Oh, these games are too easy. These games are too easy."
Right.
And what we tried to do with Broken Sword is make the puzzles logical. So in response to that, I decided to put in a really hard puzzle.
Yeah.
And the goat puzzle.
The goat.
And
Why did you slip that thing in where the goat talks to you at one point?
oh yeah, that was Rolf. That was. Yeah, I think that's Broken Sword 2.
Is that
And
2?
it's
Oh
like-
yeah,
because-
that's right. It comes
yeah,
back, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, every game that we've ever written's had a goat in it, as it happens. I'm not quite sure exactly why. Although I do like goats. But when I was going to see PlayStation a couple of years after this, I got in a taxi. They're in Great Marlborough Street. I'm going to see PlayStation. Oh, he said, do you write games? I went, yeah. Oh, which games have you written? And I knew he wouldn't know Broken Sword. So I went, you won't have heard of it. And he went, go on, try me. So I said, Broken Sword. And he turned around and he said, are you the bastard that put the goat puzzle in? So, it was really nice.
Yeah.
When we did our Kickstarter for Broken Sword 5, our wonderful fans came up with an order of the goat and, the real hardcore Broken Sword.
That's
so
great.
we've just been incredibly lucky. We've had amazing.
Yeah, it's just. I think because the quality of it as well. I think that was what always struck me. Like it was a game that treated you with respect as a player.
Oh, bless you.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't just a right. I've got 2 minutes. Let's have a quick, whatever game or something. It was like, look, you need to take the time here. We've taken the time to make this, so you need to take the time to play it.
Well, I'd love to. Let me come back to that.
Yeah.
Can I show you the game as it looks
I'd
now?
love to see it. I'm
Fantastic.
excited.
So basically, a lot of people these days, for reasons that I'd love to explore with you, find these games frustrating because they want to get moving. They want to
Yes,
move
of
forward.
course.
And I really sympathize with that because the wonderful thing about adventure games, when you're moving forward, is that you're solving puzzles and that moves the story forward. And often people play together and experience the story moving forward. So we now have a story mode.
Okay.
And in the story mode, we'll give you little hints. And you'll see some when we start the game. But also, if you try combinations like, and they don't work, we then take them away. So you don't go round and round in circles and keep the same thing, try doing the same thing 2 times.
Got
so
ya.
what this game is doing is it's reinventing the point and click for 2025 for the way that people play games. Because what we found was that games were being written like they used to be in the 90s when people had a very different expectation of how you play a game.
Yeah.
So the game is in 4K.
Amazing.
So we're playing on the controller.
Paris in the fall, the last months of the year and the end of the millennium.
So let's just watch this for a couple of minutes.
I miss that voice.
Cafes, of music, of love, and of death.
So we are extraordinarily lucky. We had a brilliant team that we brought forward from our earlier games. So a real understanding of sprites. Basically, you had 256 colors. On an Amiga, you had 32 colors.
Right.
And a low resolution screen, 640x80 on a PC. And because it had to stream off a CD, we had to compress it. Now what we're able to do is redraw everything in 4K without any of the constraints.
Oh, wow.
But what I wanted to do, and let's jump forward, what I wanted to do was really respect the original game. I want people to really enjoy this game
Yeah.
without any knowledge of what went before.
Yes.
But hopefully we can pull back people like you that enjoyed
Absolutely.
the
I'm
game
in
originally.
already. I'm like, I'm going to get back on this.
So remember that the clown put a bomb on the stool, and I'll talk about why that's relevant in a minute.
Okay.
So the game starts with poor old George caught up in an explosion, almost killed by a bomb, but he is protected by the awning, which has wrapped itself around him. Fantastic. So what I love doing is showing people this game, and they go, yeah, well, I remember this. At which point, you can jump to how it looked.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that
Look at
extraordinary?
Wow.
The ceaseless drone of traffic.
That is crazy. Go back
So-
again. Let me see it again.
Isn't that great?
That is crazy.
So everybody looks at this and go, oh yeah, I remember this. But actually what they remember, and this is the PC version. The PlayStation version was lower resolution even than this.
Wow.
So it's extraordinary. And then what we have is we filmed, videoed people playing the game and where they got stuck,
Yeah.
and have come up with a couple of things. So for example, on the PC there was just one icon, and that indicated that that was your main action. But then
Yeah.
people forgot that you could examine things as well.
Of course.
So. And again, look into his eyes. You see, you don't see in the old version, you don't see any of the facial expression. Here now you see the blinks, you see the way that his eyes move. There's so much more characterization. And the original game had 30,000 frames of animation. Well, this game has 30,000 frames of animation. So can you imagine the job of our wonderful animators going through and basically saying, well, let's reimagine these.
Yeah.
And going back to the original character sheets, because there's so much more detail. What I wanted to show you here is, remember that the clown planted the bomb.
Oh, yes.
So if we go back to the original, can you see that the bomb is actually, the bomb center is there?
Yes.
And this was the stool that he put it on. So
right.
it makes no sense whatsoever. So,
that's
just
clever.
little things like putting in the continuity. It's such a privilege to be able to go back 25 years after with a game that is a classic and is so loved by so many people,
Yeah.
and actually have the opportunity to just sort those things out.
Yeah, because there must be stuff in there that you only when hundreds of thousands of millions of people start playing it and talking about it, and obviously once you've got that amount of people, they're spotting things that 30 or however many people you had in your team didn't see. When you were coming up with George, what was the inspiration for him? Was it like just Indiana Jones with a hangover, or?
No. Although so many of my games have been inspired by Indiana Jones, I have to say. My first adventure game, which was called Adventure B,
Love it.
on the Sinclair ZX81.
Oh yeah,
Can
classic.
Yeah. It started with a jungle clearing. You go into an old temple, and then eventually a rock comes down.
Hang on a minute.
I know.
Did he grab his hat from underneath the door?
Exactly. Yeah. Except this game starts, of course, with an American coming to Paris, meeting up with a sort of sassy French journalist.
Yes.
And they almost get killed in a conspiracy involving the Knights Templar.
Well, I mean, I think you should be getting royalty checks from Dan Brown, if I'm honest.
Do you know, our fans think the same, but his lawyers are much better paid than mine. So I would never make that accusation
No,
myself.
but I can.
But
Dan,
you can, yes.
You owe this man a lot of money.
Now here, can I just show you that the game, because we've been chatting, the game at this stage is more active, but it's saying, come on, have a little sparkle,
Okay.
come in this direction. So if you're getting stuck, and we work quite hard to try and work out when we think the player is getting stuck.
Yes.
We put just a little sparkle on the screen.
Little hint.
And what we found was that people didn't feel patronised. They didn't feel like
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
spoiling it for them.
That's good.
So here's a sparkle for.
Is there any other historical events that you'd like to base a game around?
Well, the Cathars. I love the Cathars
Right.
from the Languedoc region of southwest France.
Okay, I don't know
And
that.
the story, very briefly,
Yeah.
is that, or the background, there's a woman called Elaine Pagels who wrote a very good book about the Gnostic Gospels. So the Gnostics believe in two gods, and there's a lot of evidence that Mary Magdalene was a Gnostic.
Okay.
And so her view of Christianity and her followers was quite different. And there was clearly a schism between Matthew, Mark, Luke and John and the others. And the reason that I think that this is very interesting, the way that it plays out, is that Matthew, Mark, Luke and John say that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute.
Right.
And Thomas Thomas was a Gnostic as well.
Right.
So they go, oh yeah, no, he wasn't there when Jesus gave out his ministry, so therefore he has no authority. And what I think is amazing is you go back to the Bible and you can see the sort of bickering between the two sides. And the Gnostics were persecuted right from the very beginning, but in the 13th century they rose because the Catholic Church was so corrupt. And people stopped accepting that there was, and they would say, it doesn't matter if the priest is never there. It doesn't matter if he has sex with his housekeeper. It doesn't. None of this matters as long as the priest says the right things. Then the grace of God. And these guys were going, no, we don't accept that. So they accepted instead the Cathars, who genuinely preached like St. Francis of Assisi, poverty and respect.
Yeah. So more like Jesus' teachings.
Well, exactly. And then what happened in 1207 is that the Pope was absolutely fed up, and so he organised a crusade with the King of France, and this was Christians against the Christians of the Southwest, and millions of people died. Millions and millions of people died. And this enormous great army came from the north, and the first place it came to was Béziers in the southwest of France. And they laid siege, and when they took it, and 90% of Béziers were Roman Catholics, only 10% were Cathars.
Right.
And the Cathars were Christian as well.
Right.
And they laid siege, and when they took it, they rushed in and they shouted to the Pope's envoy, who should we kill? To which he famously replied, kill them all, God will know his own. So they killed, hundreds of thousands of people. They just massacred the whole city. And then they went on. Yeah. And the final stand of the Cathars was in 1244 in a wonderful little village called Montségur, high in the Pyrenees. And the extraordinary thing is that it's on a plateau, and there were only 100 soldiers, and there were, I don't know, a few hundred inhabitants. But because there were two really steep paths up, which they could protect, the 10,000 crusaders came, laid siege, and just were held at bay. There was nothing they could do.
Right.
And then on Christmas Eve, 1244, the Crusaders had employed some climbers, and they climbed up, and they were able to scale the sheer rock, come behind, kill one of the outposts at a place called Roc de la Tour, and the Crusaders could then bring their trebuchet up, and it still took them 6 months to go the kilometre or so across really rough terrain until finally they started bombarding the castle.
Right.
So I went there a couple of years ago with my son, and he's a millennial.
Yes.
So we go to the top, and that's great. And then there's quite a drop into very rough terrain.
Yeah.
And I go, come on then, David, let's go and look for the Roc de la Tour. He goes, yeah, but Dad, it's dangerous. Okay, David, why would we go if it wasn't dangerous? And besides which, if it wasn't dangerous, then it would be full of people.
Yeah.
So we went looking for the Roc de la Tour, bless him. And we were way through into the undergrowth, a long way away from where we'd come down. And he was stepping on something to try and get up above a ledge. I said, David, stop. And he stepped down, and I pulled, and there was a trebuchet ball there. And what's great about that is that they kind of looked for all the trebuchet balls in the 60s and 70s, and they found, a dozen of them and had them in the museum.
No way.
So this was a trebuchet ball. The last time it was touched would have been 1244, during the siege of Montségur, which I think is great, isn't it?
That is amazing.
So...
Is that in your house now?
Well, the problem was that we were flying Ryanair.
Oh, right.
So and it was really heavy. So it would have cost me a fortune.
Wow.
So
yeah. Good story around that.
So that was really fun.
I think your version of a brief story on something is different to mine.
I just get excited about some aspect of history, and I do suspect that Dan Brown kind of does most of his research by internet. I suspect.
Oh yeah.
That might not be fair.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I think a lot of the people who write about these sort of medieval things probably do, and then they kind of fall for the absolute nonsense like the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, and it doesn't ring with any sort of authenticity. And I hope that, because with Broken Sword, people kind of know what's real and what's not real.
Yes, yeah.
So I'll only put something in, and I'll tell you actually another. I mean, really, the serendipity is quite extraordinary. I was with my wife and my son in the Dordogne a few years ago when I was actually working on the Da Vinci Code, which I can talk about if you're interested. But We had nothing to do with Broken Sword at all.
Right.
And we were in a little village called Carignac, just a couple of hundred inhabitants, looking out over the Dordogne, or my wife and my daughter were, because they were waiting for us to canoe past. And my wife was sitting and had lunch, and we still hadn't come past, so she went.
Canoe past, did you say then?
Canoe. We were on the Dordogne.
Okay, you were actually in a canoe.
overlooking.
You just said it like, they were just
Sorry.
waiting for us to canoe past, like that was just a normal
Did I
thing.
not? Did I
You
not?
didn't mention that bit, you just said it like,
Yeah, I'm not very.
that's a normal thing. That's the way we travel by canoe.
Sorry
No,
about
I like it. It's
that.
good.
Not very well told at all.
No, I
So
love
we
it.
were canoeing down the Dordogne, and there was a church. This place had a church, the cafe, and an art gallery. So she went into the art gallery, and there was a book with the Knights Templar symbol. So she picked it up, and the owner happened to be watching her, and he walked over and said, in French, she doesn't speak French, why are you interested in this? And she kind of said, it turned out he was a guy called Jean-Luc Chamois, who had actually written a book about the Priory of Sion and the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail in the 1970s.
No way.
So we had stumbled on, and
Yeah.
we then went and met him, and because my French is reasonable, we talked about this stuff, and he showed me his photos, showed me his articles. But we'd come across
Fascinating.
the most knowledgeable person
Yeah.
in the world,
That's amazing.
just in an art gallery. It's
That's
extraordinary.
amazing. And I didn't know you worked on the Da Vinci Code then. How's that work?
So when we finished Broken Sword 3,
Yeah.
or Broken Sword 4, we were absolutely, we had no money at all. We
Right.
were effectively insolvent because
Right.
the way that the business worked was so unfair to developers. So we mothballed a Revolution and never went bankrupt. Mothballed Revolution, and I went and got some freelance work, and really enjoyed it. And then I got a call from Take Two, and they said, "Look, we've got the rights to the Da Vinci Code. Would you like to get involved?" Now, obviously, I'm a little bit competitive.
Yes, of course.
A little bit competitive, and then they phoned me the next day, and I said, maybe I'll consider it. Next day they phoned me up and went, look, I know you haven't agreed, but can you fly to meet Ron Howard in Los Angeles?
Amazing.
And I went, yeah, okay. And they went, we'll pay you, your consultancy rate, and we'll pay all your expenses and all this sort of thing. So I was sitting, business class,
Happy days.
Virgin, exactly, drinking the wine, and I'd said, what should I prepare? And they went, nothing. Don't need to prepare anything at all. I went, really? No. You've read the book? Yeah, no, I've read the book. Yeah. Okay. Drinking wine, just thinking, this is Hollywood, baby. This is absolutely fantastic. This is what, I should be doing this, not writing games. And I arrive, and the senior vice president of Sony Pictures, a woman called Julie, is there, and she goes, Charles, we're so pleased you're here. This is going to be really contentious, though. So if I was you, I'd sit at the back of the room, just enjoy it. But the fact that you're here means the world. I was going, that's great, thanks, Julie. Should I have prepared anything? No, absolutely not, she said. Just sit at the back and it'll be fine. I'm going to handle everything. So anyway, in walks Ron Howard. We've got we've got Julie as the spokeswoman. We've got Take Two, and I'm just at the back enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And Ron says, guys, I've only got 15 minutes, and I've come to tell you that there's not going to be a game. And Julie says, these guys have a contract. They've paid an advance that's helping your film. There's going to be a game.
Oh, I see. So this company was wanting to do a game of
Yes.
the film.
Again, I haven't
No,
explained
it's
this
okay.
at all.
I'll fill in the gaps for people.
Thank you. So, yeah. So Ron says, okay, Julie, I can accept there's a game, but it's got to come 6 months after the film, which obviously is impossible. So Julie says, no, it's day and date. The contract's quite clear. It's day and date.
So they want the film and the game to come out at the same time?
Well, the publisher did.
Right.
Ron Howard
But
wanted
obviously
it
Ron
to come
Howard.
6 months later.
Why?
Well, because he thought that it was going to kind of pollute the film. And then he went, okay, I can accept that if that's it, but no marketing. And Julie says, Ron, it's quite clear. There is a contract. There's going to be a game.
I like this Julie.
There's going to be. She was
Doesn't
great.
take any shit, does she?
She doesn't know. She was fantastic.
I like her.
And Ron's really unhappy. He goes, so what are you going to do with my story? And Julie looks him in the eye and says, Ron, I'm so pleased you asked that question, because we've flown this. You can see what's coming, can't you?
No.
We've flown this guy all the way from England, and he's going to tell you what we're going to do with
Julie,
your
I
story.
liked her until then. She's thrown you right under the bus.
And I honestly had no idea what to say. And she said, and he knows all about the Knights Templar.
Oh my God.
So Ron looks at me, and he's really not happy at all. He goes, what do you know about the Knights Templar? Now, my wife and I have been invited to a ceremony at Worcester Cathedral if you
Right.
please, a Knights Templar.
Okay.
And they had all the regalia and stuff. I mean, what authority they had was
Yeah.
clearly very questionable.
Clearly.
But, you know, he was impressed by this. And he said, so where do you come from? I said, well, I come from York in England, which, of course, is where Constantine the Great was declared emperor.
I mean,
Did you know that?
I do now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Constantine the Great, who converted, you know, the whole empire to Christianity.
That guy.
That's the one. Founded Constantinople, which is
Makes
now, of course,
sense.
Istanbul.
Yeah.
And Ron says, but I thought he was coronated in Istanbul, in Constantinople. And I said, no, he founded Constantinople, but after he was coronated in York. Well, suddenly,
Look at that.
everything is like, what is going on here?
Nice. You're like
So
pals.
we are like pals.
Yeah.
And he starts smiling and, you know, the whole mood lifts. He says, so what are you going to do with my game? Or sorry, what are you going to do in
Yeah,
the
with the
game
story.
of my film?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I say, well, Ron, because I have read the book, I said the only thing that came into my mind. I said, Ron, we think we're going to work on the symbolism. And suddenly he went, have you read the book?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, what else could I say?
Yeah, of course.
What else could I
That
say?
makes sense.
Yeah. So he looked up and he went, that's brilliant. And everyone's going, job done. He went, can you give me an example?
Oh, come on, Ron.
Exactly. So I sit back and there's a sort of pregnant pause and then suddenly,
Suddenly try and remember the book.
exactly. I say, well, actually, Ron, I can. So I'm milking it at this stage, absolutely milking
yeah, of
it.
course.
Because I've got everybody just looking at me waiting. I go, in medieval paintings, Ron, the art style will change, obviously the stories change, everything changes, apart from the symbolism. And there's complete silence. Virgin Mary always wears a blue outer garment. Mary Magdalene always wears a red. A medieval audience would have known that. And that is the kind of symbolism that we're going to put into the game. And he looks at me and he goes, and he looks at Akiva, his writer, Akiva Goldsman. Goes, God, I love this, Akiva. I think we're going to have to put it into the film. And then he calls in his whole team.
No
And we
way.
start talking about all the symbolism.
No way.
And the Knights Templar. And it is a really jolly, wonderful meeting. And after an hour and a half, he said he'd got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
He goes, guys, I'm really sorry. I really do need to go. I'm so excited. Can I take your card? Because I'd love to ask you any more. And we become the best of pals.
That's amazing.
Isn't that great?
You're like the Fonz.
Well, exactly. Now, I think most people won't have any idea what you're talking about. Exactly, because of course he was Richie in Happy Days, wasn't he?
That's who he'll always be to me. Doesn't matter what film he directs, that's who he'll always be to me.
I know.
Are you still in touch now?
No.
No.
And do you know, I did look
just
when the
used
film came out. I didn't see my name. I must have missed them. As the credits rolled down,
Regular
they were
credit.
coming down fast. So, you know.
I hope you got paid a wedge for that day, Charles, because feels
Well,
like...
no, I worked and I really enjoyed it.
Did you carry on working on it then? It wasn't just that day?
Yes, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, back to Broken
Oh,
Sword.
yeah, of course, sorry.
One of the other things that was really important to us was that we found that when people were playing, that when you had hotspots quite close to each other, as you have here, got 3 hotspots, it was very easy to confuse them. So what we've worked quite hard on is this sort of rubber banding effect. Can you see that as you move, it's quite clear what you're over,
Right.
and then it moves to there, and then it jumps to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's helpful.
So that's fun, isn't it? And this is a very trivial example.
I took a deep breath and prepared to climb the drain pipe. I guess the clown had an escape over the rooftops.
Now, if we now come to the old version, you can see that the pipe doesn't actually go. So the clown couldn't have escaped over the
Yeah,
rooftops.
of course.
So again, that was something that for 25 years has kind of grigged me. And I'll give you one more example, if I may.
I love it. I love that these things that nobody else noticed have been
No,
bothering
nobody
you for
knows, and probably nobody
quarter of a
cares.
century.
But
Yeah, nobody's even bothered. Like,
But it is important because people who play adventure games are smart.
yes, no, you're right.
And
You've got to be
they'll
clever to get through
they'll
this.
read things in. And you won't remember, but when you eventually get to the hotel and you see the guy who was dressed as a clown coming in,
Yes.
he's discarded his jacket and he's wearing the same, and it's a very distinctive pattern. He's wearing the trousers that relate to that. But then he's wearing a purple jacket, and then he goes into the hotel and he opens the cupboard and he's got purple trousers in there. It's like, hang on, but if he's got the purple jacket, he must have been back to the hotel room. but if he came back to the hotel room, then why didn't it? And suddenly all of these questions that are completely irrelevant.
Columbo.
Exactly, it is
Hold
like
on a
Columbo. Just
minute. The
you know,
purple trousers, they can't be in the wardrobe and on a clown at the same. I don't get.
that's
Look, I'm not as clever as you, but
that's exactly it. So yeah, and then you've got one of the favourite phrases which we'll play now.
Freeze! Hold it, right there.
Whoa, don't shoot. I'm innocent. I'm an American.
Can't make up your mind, eh?
I demand to see the American consul.
Drop your weapons and get down on the ground.
Put that thing away, Sergeant. Move. I apologize, monsieur, but I cannot permit you to leave.
Am I under arrest?
Ah, no, I would simply like to ask you some questions. En avant, to the café, marche.
When we did the director's cut, we kind of thought that the comment about the Americans was could be considered to be offensive by Americans, and considered taking it out. I don't remember if we did or not. And of course, actually, Americans love that because
love
you know we're kind of teasing them in a very gentle way.
They've got a great sense of humour.
I imagine that you're very
back in.
I imagine you're incredibly busy for most of the year, and then you probably have quiet periods.
I do, yeah. I mean, that's what was great about playing this game during lockdown, was that I just had that time, and actually it almost became a job. Like it almost became like I said to the family, guys, I've got to go and do my work now. They're like, we play a game. I was like, yeah, but people are dependent on me. And it was funny because I had to turn it off in the end. I didn't realise that I was so new to it all that people could like send you money to. I reckon I made about 240 quid.
Wow.
Yeah, people would send money and like they would say, get yourself a kebab. Like, yeah, I'll get a little treat for yourself.
I know.
And
Well,
it was quite nice in the end.
but imagine my generation. It's so much of it is bewildering.
I mean, it's
I'll tell you
unbelievable.
what. Right, how about this? Mainly my wife, but we had a power washer to to clean some things in the garden.
Yeah.
I love power washers.
Oh, same.
There's a game called Power Wash Simulator.
I'm into it.
Like for me, but why would you play Power Wash Simulator when you can go out and get the real thing? And actually, you've got the sort of vibration. I mean, they're wonderful things, power washers, aren't they?
Yeah, but I mean, if it's a lot of setup and you need something to power, like the game makes sense. I think that makes total sense. Also, the whole gaming industry is, why don't you just go outside? Like the parents think, go outside and go and get some fresh air and have a look at the world. Play real football.
Yeah, well, except that what I think is great about video games is that you mix the idea of playing real football with, and then and it is all about, I think you were just talking about your daughters.
Yeah.
And I have a granddaughter that's just arrived, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And it's a huge privilege, but also a responsibility as an adult to try and make sure that your children or your grandchildren go down, a path which is good for them.
Yes.
In the long run, rather than just the short run.
I'm gonna have to get my son on this. My son's 13. I think it's the one. I think I'll have to get him into it.
Well,
something nice about that, isn't it? About a game that you played coming back now, and you've been able to play it again with your.
That is so interesting because I've just come back from a Comic-Con in Italy, and it was brilliant. The organisers said we're going to get like 80 fans, and you're going to sign. I was going, but they were turning people down. And this is a comic convention, and queues and queues and queues of people. And there was one. This was just a couple of weeks ago. There was a couple of young women, and they said, "Look, we want to introduce you to our mother." And the mother was standing there looking a bit sheepish. She played this game when she was pregnant with me, and we've loved it. And when we have children, we're gonna.
That's great.
And young people were going, but those young people were brought into it often through people they played with, older people that they played who introduced them.
Of course.
So please do.
No, definitely. Well, it's that difficult thing, isn't it? Because what's great about this is that it is still quality. Because the amount of times I've sat with my kids and we're sitting, I'll go, we should watch this film. It's amazing. And you have this version of that film that was amazing. And you sit there with your kids, and after 20 minutes you think, this is shit. This is actually not good. Yeah. And the kids are looking at you like, I remember this being hilarious. and it's just not stood
And
the test of time.
which was the latest one of the?
It was a Steve Martin film actually with Man with Two Brains or the woman, I can't remember what it was now, but it was basically where Lily Tomlin's in it and he ends up as half her brain inside. Oh no, she ends up as half his brain. She's in him, and I just remember it being really funny. And then I watched it. It's about an hour before that actually happens. It was so dull. Yeah, so many films that have not stood the test of time. So that's what's great about this is not only has it stood the test of time, you've actually made it better. I think,
bless you.
Yeah.
Well, here's actually quite a nice example, I think. Do you remember when you first come to
yes. Costumier.
the costumier? Yeah. And our writer.
Look at the detail, all right. Look at the puppets on the ceiling and everything. It's so great.
Welcome. Leave the mundane world behind, but in these four walls, fantasy is king.
I don't want a costume.
Didn't you ever dress up when you were a child?
Not that I remember.
Incredible. You'll be telling me next that you never shared your elder sister's lingerie.
I don't have a sister, and I think I'd look pretty silly in a brassiere. I just need some information.
Of course. How can I help you?
So what we have is these ludicrous characters. The writer, the script writer, I basically led the story and most of the puzzles, but the script was written by a guy called Dave Cummins,
Right.
who was very progressive back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so actually the game has aged, I like to think, pretty well.
Yes. Yeah.
And at the time he was sort of fairly avant-garde and out there.
Is
And
there
I have to
anything?
say,
Is there anything problematic in the game when you went back through it? You know, because culture's changed, things have shifted. Is there
well, there
anything that you
were
go,
two
oh,
things.
that's not.
In fact, I'll show you. That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's not stood the test of time.
Yeah. So let me take you to Syria, and I'll give you an example. So I'm going to show you a section to answer your question directly.
Yes.
So this character here.
Oh yeah, this guy.
So I use Tintin as I love Tintin.
Yeah.
And we created this character, and for 25 years it really worried me that he was a Tintin character that was. And I remember it being at the House of Commons for a video game reception, and this Syrian guy came up to me, who's a journalist, and he said, "Oh, we love the fact that Broken Sword has Syria." And I said, "Yeah, but some of the characters are a little bit. Oh, it just doesn't matter if they're stereotypes." He said, "The fact that you're featuring Syria is much more important."
In a positive way, in a beautiful way as well.
But it kind of does. So this guy, just tiny changes, but look at the way that look. So now he's got a much more friendly face. He's still the same character.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to notice.
No.
Nobody's going to notice. But to me, it mattered.
Right.
Because while
So let me see how he is now. Okay, so he's just less sort of.
Yeah. Exactly.
Fagin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here's the hint saying what I need to do.
Another problematic character.
Indeed. And then there's also a scene at the end where Nico's tied up and you go and rescue her. In Broken Sword 2, of course, she comes and rescues you because I couldn't do it twice. I couldn't have the princess trope twice.
But again, that's very progressive because at the time to have that. That now is like 50-50, you would hope. That is great.
Well, one of the things I felt very passionately when we founded Revolution was that the way that women were depicted in video games or home computer games in the 80s was really appalling. Obviously exaggerated sexuality. I remember Sam Fox strip poker. God's truth. It's like it was guys. Like I know that this is mainly played by young men, but surely we're more cultured than to sexualize. But the case was it was not the case. So the other thing that I changed, because we only changed two things, this and at the end Nico's tied up, and George can kiss her.
Ah, yes.
And I think that's all right, but there's some creepy lines which we kind of just removed,
filtered out.
So and I think it just there's a line, and
we learn, don't we?
We do learn, and it is important to be culturally appropriate, of course.
yeah.
But at the same time, I think you know, you don't want to bow too much to,
No,
to,
no,
to
no.
the
There's
pressure
got to
of
be
a,
a,
of
gotta be
a very
line.
small group of people who.
No, I think it's just about you. I think if you're thinking, will someone think this? You can think that all day long because there's billions of people. You have to look inside, not outside, to go, how do I feel about that? And if it's something that bothers you, I've got previous jokes from, I've been doing it 25 years. Even within 25 years, there's cultural shifts, there's shifts in language. There's words or phrases that I wouldn't use now.
Yeah.
That's not because I think, an audience might not. They'll probably still laugh, to be honest, but I wouldn't feel comfortable. So I think that's the problem. People are looking that way.
Oh, that's
But
interesting.
they need to look this way and go, well, what does my heart say?
Yep.
How do I feel about
Well,
that? That feels right.
This is what I said, that any changes that we made, I would justify, because I know that a lot of people were really worried that we were going to really tone it down, we were going to wokeize it.
Yes.
And what I said is, look, I will defend, because I will judge what I think. And I'm really thrilled that actually we haven't had, people are generally really, really happy. Yeah. And people don't mind that we've made a couple of very minor changes, because we've also found a whole lot of text, speech that was recorded and was intended to be in the game.
Oh, right, wow.
But for whatever reason never played. And there's an awful lot more. I mean, maybe 2 lines have come out.
Right.
And dozens of lines have gone back in again.
Yeah.
And to really hardcore fans, they're playing the game again and they're delighted because they thought they knew everything about the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And now there are new elements.
that's nice.
So that's really fun, isn't it?
Yeah. You still got the scene where George though, haven't you?
don't you
He
dare.
does the full doesn't he? I don't think that's aged well.
I think we're going to have to cut that one out. Actually, I'll tell you. I mean, and again, we will cut this out. It's wonderful that you still play these games and you still play adventure games. And I love the idea of you introducing your son and your
definitely.
daughters once they finish their GCSEs.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we are absolutely blessed with a very diverse audience.
Yeah, it's not. It was very much a boy thing, wasn't it,
It
for a
was,
long
yeah.
time, But now there's so many different games, and everything just feels.
But when we
anyone.
put Nico, you asked me a question which I'm only just remembering that I completely failed to answer.
That's all right.
When I was maybe 10 or so, my mother took me to Paris. Now, as I say, England was very, very grey, and we lived in London, close to the Battersea Power Station, and everything was full of smog, and everything had soot, and it was just grim. So to go to Paris, where everything was alive and the food was amazing, and just little things like the fact that the men were smoking gitan and gauloise, which had such a strong smell, but an unfamiliar smell.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, the Paris of Broken Sword is the Paris of the 1970s, where everything is brighter. Oh, from a child's perspective.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Where everything is slightly brighter, and it's exciting, and people are interesting. And so the first character for Broken Sword was actually Nico, who was this sort of strong. Because that's the other thing about the French women, without wishing to generalise, because I could get into terrible trouble. But there's this sort of wonderful confidence.
Yes.
And strength, inner strength.
Yeah.
And so I was excited that we would have Nico as a strong, assertive young woman.
Yeah.
And in a game or in any medium, film as well, or television, it's useful to have a partner, because you can then get the story across through the dialogue. The exposition is conveyed through what they say.
Yeah.
But it's then, the fun of that is then amplified if the two characters have a difference of understanding. So if we were going to have a French young woman, then the opposite of that would be a laid-back Californian.
Makes sense.
And as they play through the game, their relationship develops, but it's very much built on the fact that they have completely different understandings of the world.
Yeah.
But because we have a strong female protagonist, we also now, and this isn't by design, it's just because it's a better story, we have a very large proportion of our audience are women, and the most passionate advocates are normally women as well.
Okay.
So I feel very, privileged.
Well, like you were saying at the time, women would. I guess Tomb Raider would have been the first sort of time where a female lead, action and was, and what was that like? About the same time.
It was about the same time.
Yeah, late 90s. So So actually, to have Nico, who has got a job, you know, is clever, is not, you know, it's that, I can't remember what that test is called in movies where, you know, every line a female says is about a man, you know. But she's not got that because at the beginning they're not even interested in it. They don't even seem to like each other for a long time, you know. So it's I can see how that how they would feel about Nico as a character back then and even now.
But we sort of started off badly because the first game that we ever wrote, which was released in 1992, was called Lure of the Temptress, which well exactly. But hear me out.
You've been fixing it ever since.
We were finishing this first game, and I got some crappy names for it. And the head of marketing, a woman called Alison Beasley, phoned me up and said, "Right, we need to come up with a name. Can you fax me?" Now, young people have no idea what a fax is, but you know, a bit of paper that you put into a machine and it comes out at the other end.
Bizarre.
A little bit blurred and a bit crappy, and you know. But anyway, so I came up with a list of names, and at the bottom I put Lure of the Temptress, and I put in brackets, "This is a joke." And one of the great lessons I've learned in life is never ever tell a marketing person something as a joke or something unless you know you want them to grasp onto it. She grasped onto it and said, "Look, we love Lure of the Temptress. You have to call it Lure of the Temptress."
Oh, no.
And I phoned her up and said, "Look, Alison, it's impossible." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Two big problems. One, the game has no luring. And two, it has no temptress." There was a silence, and she said, "Can you put one in?" Honest to God.
Wow.
Honest to God. So there was, again, a long silence. She said, "In truth, we think the game is a little bit shorter than it should be. We'll pay you an extra £10,000. Can you put a temptress in?"
No problem. There'll be one there tomorrow afternoon.
And indeed, so we completely changed the story.
That's hilarious.
Added a bit in the end, exactly.
For money,
And
Charles.
we needed the money. And the game was due to release. And because of the extension by 6 months or whatever, between then, the company went into liquidation. And we were almost finished. It was extraordinary. And the contract actually said that we could terminate the agreement. Sorry, either party could terminate the agreement if the other one went into liquidation. Now, never in their wildest dreams would Microsoft have imagined that it would be anything but them terminating it.
Yeah, of course, yes.
So
Plucky upstart.
we terminated the agreement. And it was quite clear. They said, you know, to terminate, you have to write to the address in the recitals, which was a registered address, so we did that. A load of other developers, you know, jumped on the bandwagon and served notice to their main offices, which was trouble because anyway, so then the company was bought, or the assets were bought by a company called Acclaim. And Acclaim then came after all the developers and went, "We don't accept that you've terminated correctly," which clearly we had. And they sent through a fax and it said, "Look, we don't accept that, you know, can you," and it had two boxes. And the first box was, "We accept that you own the rights." Two, "We don't accept that you own the rights." So of course we said we don't and faxed it back. There was a group called the Bitmap Brothers, and they had a third box on which they wrote and they ticked it and faxed it back. And I just think it's wonderful that a new generation, and I think this all came because Steam basically started publishing games middle of the first decade, so around about 2005. iPhone 2007.
Right.
So at that time, the retail model, before games could only be bought at retail, and there were a limited number of slots, and you'd have, I don't know, maybe 20% were AAA, $100 million, and everything else was $10 million filler. And they were all the visceral games. They were, you know, the games that are trying to compete with the AAA games. And so there was no place for a number of years for adventure games and for indie games.
Right.
And then when we moved to a digital storefront, suddenly there was no constraint. And the opportunity for indie games to publish suddenly emerged and hadn't existed for years and years and years.
Okay.
And we'd worked with a company called THQ, which was the biggest video game publisher in the world in the early 2000s. When the change to digital happened, they were bankrupt within 4 years. They completely failed. And for companies like Revolution, we were able to, you know, unmothball ourselves I mean, it actually happened that around about 2008, 2009, we got a call from a guy called Paul Burford. And he said, yeah, I'm working for Apple. Oh, yeah. He said, we've got this new device that you may have heard of called the iPhone. We went, yes, we've heard of the iPhone. And he said, I think your games would work really well on the iPhone. And it's like, and that was one of the absolute pivotal moments.
Yeah, of course.
Because we'd, as I say, we'd mothballed the company.
We've got one called The Lure of the Temptress.
Well, it was Beneath the Steel Sky that we did first, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we'll support you with marketing if you, because the games that were doing really well and earning a lot of money up to that point were games like I Fart. There was a game where you moved a bar and a glass of beer moved up and down. There's one called Doodle Jump, which was a really fun game.
Doodle Jump was good, yeah.
Very, very simple. Flappy Bird was on Android. And they were just desperate for, proper, dare I say, proper games.
Yeah, but
to
something
come
with a
across.
bit of substance, yeah.
And we, the company didn't really exist, but we were still, in contact with one of the founders, Tony Warriner, and a guy called Joost Peters, who had come and worked as an intern because he was a huge fan of Beneath the Steel Sky. And those two worked really, really hard to port it across to iPhone. And the game released, and Apple got behind it, and it just did really well.
Are you and you'd be side on?
Side on, yeah.
Yeah, side on. So you've got all the space to play it. I can see it. Look at that. I can see it already. I see it already. Yeah, because also having something that you can pick up and play. You've got 20 minutes on the toilet, or while you're waiting for a meeting to start or whatever. It's just being able to play. And what I loved about Broken Sword and still love is that you've got this movie level story. So it feels, you're the main character, you're in there, but it's fun and it's light-hearted as well as, and then when it gets into it, you're 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like, I need to just fix this, so I think it's just got, it's got the best of everything really in that respect. That's why it's, like we said, that's why it stood the test of time. And also I think the age of people who remember it and play it, then it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to sell to your kids if it's on the mobile as well. We're talking about getting your kids to play it because, if you start going, right, let me just work out how to get this up on the screen here, and you can have it, already they've lost interest. But if you're like, bang, bang, have a go at that. So would it be because you said there was 2 versions of the game, would you still get 2 options?
Yeah, you still have the option to jump between the 2. And as I say, we've the truth, if I'm going to be totally honest, I started playing a very popular point-and-click adventure game, and I found myself getting bored. And it was like, hang on. There's something that we need to do to reinvent the genre. And, for example, as I said...
On this, it will be literal point-and-click.
It would be. Oh, well, it's slide and tap.
Oh, I see. So
you slide your finger across and then tap, But we have a tutorial that hopefully will explain all of that.
Great.
Because certainly if there's no tutorial, we do see people tapping.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
And exactly. So we now come up with a little notice saying, this is how you play the game. So what the game tries to do is understand why people are getting stuck, why they're getting frustrated.
Yes.
And so on mobile, we did a lot of user testing, and again we looked at the videos, and one of the things that really struck me was that I think somebody used the lipstick. This is for Broken Sword 2 on the door. We did it for Broken Sword 2 because we thought we'd cover our tracks. We didn't want anybody to know that we were working on Broken Sword 1.
Clever.
So we'd actually put out the original version in low resolution.
Yes.
And got comments back. And I realized that actually when you do the same thing twice, you go off, you do things, you can't solve it, come back and do the same, and you get exactly the same voiceover, you go, the immersion is broken.
Yeah, of course.
So, as I say, in the story mode, we take away the opportunity to click on something twice.
Yeah.
If it isn't important for the gameplay.
Makes sense.
To move forward.
Yeah, makes sense.
So hopefully a new generation will find that actually the game, feels, I guess if you want to play a very fast-moving game, then you want to play a very fast-moving game.
Yeah, well, that's
this is
different,
more of a cerebral, sit down, try and work out what's going on.
Definitely.
So you should have the matchbook there,
Yeah.
and the matchbook matches the carpet. So Alamut, of course, was the assassins were a cult that came from Alamut in Iran, and they were really cool. And I think that obviously they're featured in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But Assassin's Creed depicts them as almost Christian, and actually they were very Arabic in the way that they dressed and the pictures of them. And what I think is exciting about the history of the medieval history was that when the Crusaders went over to the Holy Land, they learnt so much from the Muslims, who were much more advanced.
Yes, I've read that.
And so a lot of, our numbering system, of course, comes from India. But algebra is called algebra because it comes from the Arabic maths. So I think it's also I think it's really important to understand that actually these people who'd been stuck in villages and in Europe went and had their eyes opened. And I think what is also really interesting is the whole Gothic, all the great cathedrals like York Minster, that all emerged after the Crusades.
Right.
And there's this sense that this incredible explosion of information that came. And I do think, it was one way because, the Dark Ages were dark because, in fact, shall I tell you something I think is kind of really interesting?
Well, all you've told me is things that are interesting
Bless
today,
you.
so carry on.
So, with and I'm quoting from a BBC program, but the Romans had huge numbers of books because they had papyrus that was cheap from Egypt.
Right.
When Egypt was lost to the Muslims, there was now no opportunity to create anything to write on, so they used vellum, which was very expensive, and it became for the rich only.
Right.
And then the Chinese invented paper, but they kept it really secret.
Right.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then in a great battle between the Huns and the Chinese, the Huns won and they captured 2 paper makers. And the paper makers taught them how to make paper. And paper spread throughout the whole of Europe.
Wow.
Really quickly, just from that battle. Isn't this brilliant?
That's amazing.
Isn't this brilliant?
Yeah.
And so writing out manuscripts was really expensive. They wanted to do a cheap version of a manuscript, but they wanted it to look like a manuscript. So they print it, and then they draw by hand and make it look like a manuscript, and people believed it was a manuscript, and they, and suddenly people were able to read, and the spread of information was extraordinary. The Arabic font, however, because of the squirrels that went over, didn't suit the printing press. So they didn't, in the Arabic countries, they didn't actually use the printing press in the same way. So you didn't get the same spread of information, which is one of the reasons why, as I say, there was so much knowledge, which then came across. But that knowledge then exploded throughout the whole of Europe because of the printing press.
Right.
Isn't that brilliant?
That's amazing. Oh, fascinating. Feels like a George discovery.
Well, indeed,
Feel like he
indeed.
could do it. So where are we up to with Broken Sword Games then? So what have we got for people? For people just who first time they've come to this, we've got this Broken Sword 1, and then they're going to finish this in no time because they love it. What they got? What are we going to look at next?
Well, that's a very good question. We are it's wonderful. We're a small, very small team in York, in the north of England, so we've been working on Broken Sword 1. We've been bringing it across to new platforms, bringing it across to mobile. We've got new languages. We've got Polish and Czech, and we did a Kickstarter for this Broken Sword 1 for the physical version, and everybody said, "Oh, Kickstarter, you can't do crowdfunding. It doesn't work anymore for video games." We raised £850,000.
We're old school, you see, Broken Sword fans.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And,
amazing.
I'm going off to Poland next week, and they're huge fans. And people say, well, does it worry you that the first time round they were all pirated? I go, it doesn't worry me in the least.
No.
Because Virgin never paid us any royalties anyway.
So
and we've got all these fans, and now, I mean, particularly Poland. Poland was very poor in the 90s,
right.
and now it's extraordinarily successful.
Yeah, of course.
So generally, people, if they can afford to, want to support the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And I look at some of the comments, and people go, I think I've bought it 8 or 9 times now, and I'm delighted, and now I'm going to buy it another time. So we have, generally a slightly older audience, and I think most of them are very happy to buy it because they know that supports us and we can write new games.
Okay, I'm going to ask you another question now. Why have we not? I know there's been Dan Brown, but why have we not had a Broken Sword movie?
That's a really good question. We actually had a formal offer quite recently from one of the big production companies in London, and our agent basically told us to turn it down.
Really?
Because, and we've had various offers throughout, but this was a firm, and he said, Broken Sword's really important. You need to be with the right home, and I don't think these people are committing enough money to making it.
Ah.
And we're working with a great group called Story Kitchen, based in Los Angeles, who licensed Sonic the Hedgehog for films, and they're doing Tomb Raider, and they're really enthusiastic about it. So I would imagine that it's going to happen fairly soon. But from my perspective, it's got to be right, because without a film, that's fine. Without television, that's fine. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen. But if it does, it would, and it's good, it would be fantastic. And it would then reinvent it for a new.
Of course, then everyone's like, where's this come from?
I don't suppose you know any great Mancunian actors that could play, play a leading role, do you?
In fact, maybe David Threlfall, I think he's pretty good.
So it's exciting.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
The other nice thing is that we are a small team, which has its problems, and there's a certain amount of chaos. But it also means that we're super focused.
Why is that though? Because I know there was moments where you thought, we're going to go bankrupt, or it's not going to go well. But you've also got your brain and your expertise, and why then haven't you become or gone down that path of dominance of going, right, we're going to make this and this, and I'll get and employ these people and become that massive gaming company?
I think.
Not that you're not a big gaming company, but
No.
Like
and we're most certainly not a big gaming company. The adventure is a niche genre. It's a big niche genre, but it is a niche genre.
Right.
So, my fellow developers that went into shooting or games for super casual have done very, very well.
Right.
Also, I hate to admit it, but I care much more about writing games that people love than I do about making money, which is an incredibly naive thing to say.
No, I think it's a nice thing to hear in this day and age.
Oh, bless you! But it's so joyful to talk to people. A few years ago, there was a kid I remember, and he cornered me in the pub, and he said, "Look, I've got to talk to you. I've just got to say something." He said, "When I was young, I got very depressed, and then my mother died." He said, "I was overweight. I used to get bullied at school. And I played Broken Sword," he said, "and it taught me that actually normal people can do extraordinary things."
Oh.
And he said, "Look, I'm really sorry that I did it." And it's like,
wow,
this is just wonderful.
Yeah,
and thank you. And I hear these sorts of stories again and again. People whose lives have literally been changed by this. So that means a lot more to me than the money.
Yeah.
And just in this winter, I came out of the office. Which is in the Shambles in York, and people take pictures of it. It's wonderful.
It's gorgeous,
and pictures of our sign. It's like a sort of pilgrimage. People peg it, and I was a bit grumpy because I was meeting somebody and I was late, and I locked the door up, and it was dark, and behind me I heard a voice. There was a young woman with a young child and her husband, and she said, and I heard her say, "And this, darling, is where Revolution are based." So I turned round and kind of looked at her strangely, and she thought I was very strange, which I don't blame her for a moment. And then thankfully, because it could have been quite difficult, it could have been another of these great moments, couldn't it? She recognized who I am. And she said, "I come every year." She said, "I played with my parents, and I can't wait to introduce my children, my son here, to the game."
I love that.
And, frankly, that matters a lot more to me than making loads of money.
That's fair. That's fair enough.
And wonderful people like you who are still enthusiastic after all these years.
I absolutely love it. I'm excited to. So this has been released where? Where can people play it?
So it was released. It's already out on PC and
On Steam.
On Steam and GOG, and PlayStation 5.
And people can go to.
And PlayStation 4.
And can people go and buy it? Like, is it
Very much so.
So they go to
Very
game
much so.
and.
I mean, the insane thing is that the game has an average review score on Metacritic on PlayStation 5 of 89%. I mean, this is a game.
The PlayStation crowd as well.
Well,
they want that quick fix, so that's great.
Well, if we've got time, let me tell you a story going back to 1997. Well, going back to 1995, when in the 80s, when I'd worked in development, there was this very tall, lanky guy who was super keen, bright, always hanging around trying to get into the industry. His name was Phil Harrison.
Okay.
And he phoned me up in about 1995, and he said, "Look, I'm working for Sony, and we've got this new console. We haven't announced it yet. It's called the PSX, which is obviously going to become the PlayStation."
Yeah.
And he said, "Would you like to come and see it?" I went, yeah. And you may remember there was a 3D rendering of a Tyrannosaur head.
Oh yes.
And that felt so incredible at the time. And then when we were doing Broken Sword, I got hold of Sony and said, "Look, do you want to?" First of all, Virgin actually was our publisher. They went, "It won't work. It's got to be visceral and 3D." So I went to PlayStation. I said, "Look, would you like to publish it?" They went, "I don't think it'll work." Anyway, I managed to convince them to do it. And the game then released in the Christmas. And to give you an idea of the way it worked back in those days, the head of marketing was a very cool guy called Dave Patton. And because we were releasing it through PlayStation, you know, he kind of got in touch. And then just before the Christmas of 1997, his PA phoned up and said, "Look, David's really upset. The game's not going to make Christmas, so we're cancelling it." And I went, "Oh my God." I said, "Can I come to London and talk to David?" She said, "You can, but it won't make any difference." So I get on the train and I go and see him. And I walk in and he says, "We've put so much effort into this. I'm really disappointed. I really feel let down." I said, "David, can I use your phone?" And yeah. So I phone up the QA in Liverpool who are testing it. And I talk to the lead and I go, "You've received a new version of Broken Sword, haven't you?" Yeah. "How do you think it's?" "Well, actually, it's come on a lot. Do you think it'll make Christmas?" "Yeah, I think it probably will make Christmas." "Can you tell Dave Patton that you think it'll make Christmas?" Yeah. So I phoned it and he went, "Okay, it's back in again." And that is the way that it worked back in the 90s.
That is crazy.
I mean, it's not like that anymore.
No, that's terrifying though. That it could have just been gone and disappeared.
And so the game released, and the official PlayStation magazine. Nowadays, the circulation of 20,000 would be phenomenal. In those days, the official PlayStation magazine in the UK had a circulation of 600,000.
Wow.
It was the second biggest after one of the, I can't remember, GQ or whatever. But it was absolutely massive. And it was the same in Germany, same in France, same in Australia, same in bigger in the US.
Yeah, of course.
And so we put it out for review, and everybody expected the game to just kind of fizzle and disappear. It got 9 out of 10 and extended coverage. So it got, instead of like the 2 pages that you normally get, it would have 7 or 8 pages.
Wow.
It went absolutely huge. But Virgin at the time thought that marketing was about getting full page adverts and putting adverts. But what we were then invited to do was to do a demo to put on the cover mount. So there was a CD that came, and you'd have 4 or 5 games.
That's right.
And kids would buy the magazine, which was expensive.
Yeah,
it was £5.
But you got a load of games.
But you got a load of games.
That rings a bell, I feel like maybe that might have been, maybe that's how I was introduced.
Oh.
Maybe that feels weirdly, I'm getting a memory of that. Now you've said that.
So did you have a PlayStation?
We had the PlayStation 1.
Oh, that will have been it.
Yeah.
Oh, that will have been it.
Yeah.
Because kids of your age, £5 was a lot. So therefore they played the demos to death.
Yeah, of course.
And the thing about an adventure game is you need to invest a little bit of time.
Yeah.
If you're going to give up after 20, 30 seconds, then you probably won't play.
Yeah.
And so we had a captive audience, and the game in Europe, everybody thought it was going to fizzle. As I say, it sold 650,000 units. But one of the things I'm really proud of is that the official PlayStation magazine ran a readers' poll the next year about the best PlayStation game ever written. And Broken Sword 2 came in at number 5.
Wow.
Ahead of Resident Evil, ahead of massive games. And we got this, and it wasn't fudged in any way. It was genuinely,
amazing.
Over that time, we built. So, and through the DNA, I know that most people, well, you say you played it. we get fantastic sales on PlayStation. PlayStation is a wonderful, wonderful platform for us.
Amazing.
And we know the guys at PlayStation, and they still love the game.
What about, surely it's ready, and it's actually the perfect game for VR. I mean, if you were George, I mean, it's just ready. What's stopping you?
VR is fantastic when they get it right, isn't it?
Yes, it's amazing.
And
Like, you could be picking stuff up. You could be, untying Nico.
now I'm old enough to remember VR, Sega VR, in the late 80s.
Right.
Do you know in Piccadilly Circus? In Piccadilly Circus, you used to have a big arcade area.
I wouldn't have been around. I
No,
wouldn't
no,
have
no,
been
no,
one in
no, no,
those
no, no,
days,
but you might have heard of it.
Right.
And they had a VR machine. And of course, the frame rate was really slow, so it made you feel really sick, motion sickness, almost immediately. But it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then it went away for a bit. And then it came back, and there was still this sense of if there was any lag at all, because as you probably know, motion sickness is a disconnect between what your brain senses and what your eyes see.
Right.
And apparently, it's because if you're poisoned, that is the symptom that you get. So you want to be sick to get rid of whatever is poisoning you. So you get the same sense when you do this. I was lucky enough to, we worked with a comic book artist called Dave Gibbons, who co-wrote Watchmen, if you remember Watchmen.
Yeah, of course.
And we worked on Beyond a Steel, well, we're both on Beneath Steel Sky and Beyond a Steel Sky. And he showed me some of the VR stuff that he was doing. So I think that the time is really close to be able to do this really, really well. I think up until now, it's suited a different type of game. But you are right, it would be wonderful to bring these games into VR.
To be George Stobbart and to be walking around and grabbing things and trying to put things together.
But here's a question, Jason.
Yes.
Should you have a third-person
I was
camera,
just thinking that.
or should you have a first-person camera? Because
yeah, that's tough. Because George is part of the magic of the game, isn't he? So being
but
George,
it does work very well in third person as well. Because
yeah, true.
obviously, as you change the perspective, so you reveal things that couldn't be seen before.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. I don't know, but greater mind than I just love to be George. I think maybe that's what it is. On as well. Well, it's very exciting.
So can I convince you to do a playthrough? Because
I think I'm going to have to.
Our
to be
fans
honest.
absolutely
Well,
loved
I
your
loved
playthrough.
it. I loved it. It was one of my favourite things that I did during lockdown, and people asked me about it all the time. And actually, because I had to, at the time, because no one was around, I just had to work out how to, because I'm not massively technical, try to work out how to, you've got to mirror the screen and put it on YouTube and Facebook and all those things. But actually, I think that now is probably a lot easier.
Well,
than
the
it
other
was.
problem, of course, that you had a Mac.
Yes,
and the
that's
game
right.
wasn't naturally working on a Mac.
That's
so there was
right.
But now, Steam and GOG, all the consoles, it just works. It's absolutely, I mean, it's so much easier playing games. PC, do you remember, DLL missing? And it's like, why are you telling me this is DLL? I haven't done anything. It shouldn't be happening.
It was hard work.
And now it just works. It's great.
Yeah, no, I think we'll have to go back through it. And actually, funnily enough, even just, flicking through it, then I was thinking, how do you solve this puzzle now? Like, and obviously there'll be some stuff that I totally remember, but a lot of stuff that you go, I can't remember.
But what's wonderful is because I dropped in, many times.
You used to do. It was great.
And I love the fact that everybody who knows the game inside out was loving watching you getting stuck and going, try this, try this, try this, try this.
Yeah.
And the sense of, I don't know how many people were, probably hundreds of people, all in this sort of community together.
It was lovely,
and
actually.
It was lovely. So I would absolutely love. If I can contribute to that, then let me know.
Yes.
And if not, we'll sit.
Well,
we'll give away games and we'll give away freebies and
little
things.
codes and stuff. Yeah, I think maybe there's a way of doing it where, because at the time it was fine because obviously I was around, and so 9:30, get on. Whereas now, of course, I'm back on tour, so it might have to be a late night. Maybe a late night little delve into Broken Sword. Sort of getting there about sort of. I don't know, quarter to 11 or something, and just doing an hour before midnight.
Ooh, that would be brilliant.
That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it?
Or I mean, when did your tour finish?
Oh, We don't talk about that.
Oh, right.
It's
Does it
forever.
go on and on and on?
Next May.
Oh.
But
Oh.
we'll find time. We'll definitely get it done.
Great. Well, I'm really looking forward to you coming to York.
Yes, of course.
We've got, we might even bring a baby. Well, I think probably 6 months old. That's a little bit young, isn't
I've
it?
had younger, actually. I've
Have
had
you?
some newborns in there, you know. Well, a lot of the time, the tickets go on sale so far in advance. They buy the tickets, meet someone, get pregnant, have a baby, and then I rock up. So, you know, it's a...
I think that is the case because you had to cancel your York.
That's right, yeah.
Gig at the Barbican. But yeah, I think we bought it for my daughter before she became pregnant.
There you
so
go.
that
You
just
see.
shows.
Well,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
by
yeah,
the time we're back, she'll have found a babysitter, I'm sure.
Brilliant. And will you come and have dinner with us?
Of course, I'd love that as
That'd
well.
be
Let's do
great.
that before the show.
Excellent. Jason, thank you so
Always
much.
a
It's lovely
pleasure.
to see
It's
you.
lovely to see you as well, yeah. And it's brought back some lovely memories of one of the best games of my childhood, and now my adulthood is back.
Bless you. Bless you. Thank you so much.
No worries.